Good afternoon. My name is Council Member Aurin Chowdhury. I'm a Minneapolis City Council member representing the South Side and the Chair of Intergovernmental Relations. This is our latest installment of the Metro Ice Out report. We're joined by several officials across from local and state government today. We have been continuing to give these updates every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to make sure our constituents, the press, gets timely updates as the situation evolves with the ICE occupation here in Minnesota. I'm really, really grateful to the officials that are here today. The first official that will have give an update is Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty.
Thank you, Council Member, for giving me the opportunity to talk to the community about what our office is doing in this situation. I'll start first with what you've all seen about what happened to Congressman Member Omar last night. What I can report is we are working with law enforcement on that, the Minneapolis Police Department. I believe the preliminary reports we have is that what was sprayed on people was not toxic. We are reviewing our charging options, and I'm also hearing that the federal government might charge the man as well. As you all know, Renee Good and Alex Preddy were shot and killed by ICE agents. There was also another gentleman who was shot in the leg on January 14th. The BCA, our Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, that's our state local law enforcement agency, is investigating with us all three of those cases. When their investigations are completed, we expect to make decisions about whether charges are appropriate or not. You've probably also heard that the BCA has been blocked from getting access to any of the evidence that the federal government seized. If you're wondering if that's unusual, it's pretty much unheard of. When Renee Good was shot, I was on the phone with the U.S. Attorney or somebody from the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, and the BCA, and we had all worked out an agreement that the BCA would be allowed to do a joint investigation with the FBI. And then suddenly, and I think this came from the administration, the BCA was kicked out. Now, what that means is that we probably won't have access to, say, her car, shell casings, the gun, that kind of thing. But that's not insurmountable. It's not a question of how she died. There's plenty of video. And we are, as I said, working with our state BCA to collect as much information as we can. As you may also know, we opened a public portal for people to submit any videos or other evidence. And thank you to community. We've received a lot of really helpful information. On the Alex Preddy shooting, when that happened Saturday morning, I was in contact with the BCA. We also had a prosecutor who went out to the scene. The goal there was that the BCA be able to enter the scene and process it, which is what they do in every deadly use of force case. The difference here, by the way, is that it's a federal agent. If it was a licensed Minnesota peace officer, the BCA would have access to that scene and we wouldn't have a problem. However, it does not matter where you work. If you commit a homicide in Minnesota, we have jurisdiction to take a look at that, and the BCA should have the opportunity to collect the evidence or at least be there when the evidence is collected and have access to the case file. However, they were actually physically blocked from entering the scene. If you were watching on Livestream, you could see that there were federal agents standing a couple feet apart with large batons. They were preventing the BCA agents from entering the scene and collecting any evidence. Because of that, we worked with the BCA to get a search warrant from a state court judge. They drafted the warrant. We made sure a judge was available. The judge signed that warrant. And that was communicated to the federal government that the BCA did have a valid signed warrant, and still they would not let the BCA enter the scene. Because of that, we then filed a lawsuit in federal court, asking the court to order the federal government to preserve all of the evidence and not alter it in any way. We also asked for what's called a temporary restraining order, or a TRO. making it immediate. And the court granted that Saturday night. In other words, the court ordered the federal government to preserve all of the evidence in the Alex Preddy shooting and not alter it in any way. We had a hearing in federal court this past Monday, and both sides argued about whether that order should continue. We are waiting to hear from the judge about that. So I have to end here, but I want to tell everybody we are persistent. We have jurisdiction here. We are working with the BCA on all three of these investigations, and I expect to have enough evidence. And hear this very carefully. I expect to have enough evidence to decide whether charges are appropriate in each of those cases. We have not made a decision about whether charges are appropriate because we want to make sure we have the evidence. But I expect that we will be very transparent and tell you what our decision is and what evidence that is based on, because I know that is expected, and that's what you want, and that's what you deserve. So I have to sign off now. Thank you for this opportunity, Council Member Chowdhury.
Thank you so much, County Attorney Mary Moriarty. Next, we will get an update from the state. We have a trifecta of legislators. We have Floor Leader Jamie Long, Senate President Senator Bobby Joe Champion, and Senator Omar Fateh. Why don't we go to Floor Leader Long?
Thank you so much, Councilmember Chowdhury, and good to be with everyone. So we have seen reckless and dangerous actions from the officers who are operating in Minnesota. And we have also seen actions that are blatantly unconstitutional, whether that is violations of individuals' free speech rights, their rights under equal protection, or their rights to due process. And we know that the agents are hearing from folks as high up as the vice president that they have immunity for these actions, absolute immunity, he said. But as you heard from County Attorney Moriarty, that is not the case. We have a lot of faith in our county attorney and in Attorney General Ellison to do all that they can to hold people to account and bring them to justice for the actions that are happening in our state. But at the state level, we wanted to do our part too. And so I'm going to talk very briefly about what we're introducing, and then I will turn it over to my colleagues in the Senate to talk about the why. So we are going to be, when we get back to session in just 3 weeks now, introducing a bill to establish a civil right of action for Minnesotans to sue for violations of their constitutional rights. This is already available for Minnesotans under what's called a 1983 action to bring it against state and local actors, but there's no equivalent right now for bringing these types of cases against federal actors. And this doesn't run into challenges with the federal government because we are enforcing the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. And so we are actually furthering those basic fundamental rights that we have in place for all Minnesotans. So I'm hoping that we can move this bill forward and even pass it in the House. We are in a tie in the House. We will need Republican support, but all of us take an oath to defend and uphold the Constitution when we are sworn into the legislature. And that's all this bill does. It upholds the Constitution, and it would allow individuals in our community, whether they're individuals who have been shot and killed, the family members, or just individuals who've had their car windows bashed out, their doors broken in, or have been injured otherwise, to bring a claim and seek compensation and damages. So with that, I'll turn it over to Senate President Champion.
Thank you so much, Jamie, Representative Long, for the opportunity to advance this legislation. Let me first say that in the Senate, we're going to have co-chief authors, and that would be me along with Senator Fateh, and I'm excited to be joining with him on this bill. And Representative Long said we would speak to the why. Thank you for that. Understand this, this unprecedented deployment of federal agents has resulted in actions that violates our fundamental rights and freedoms we have in this country. When you think in terms of this deployment, there are over 3,000 agents that are here, and we've seen a number of different things happen. We've seen ICE agents arresting U.S. citizens without probable cause or due process. They've used excessive force threaten people with guns for asking questions, gone door to door in targeted communities with large populations of people of color. They continue to demand papers from Minnesotans going about their daily lives. They've used, chemical weaponry, for lack of a better word, and they have now killed two people, Renee Good and Alex Pretty. Federal immunity, have you heard a little bit from Representative Long, limits legal accountability, making it hard for individual people who have had their rights violated to sue, even when violence has occurred. And so this legislation we're proposing would allow Minnesotans to sue for monetary damages in state court for constitutional and civil rights violation. This proposal is critical. I mean, it's critical to upholding the constitutional rights of our people, especially when they're not being protected in practice. So no government actors should be above legal consequences. And we believe that civil rights protections are directly linked to communities' well-being and trust in law enforcement. So that's why we want to restore confidence in the process and make this a right of action possible. With that, I'll go to my Senate co-chief author, Senator Fateh.
Thank you so much, President Champion, and also thank you, Floor Leader Long, the both of you for joining in on this legislation, and I want to thank you also, Aurin, for giving us the opportunity to speak. My name is Omar Fateh. I'm the State Senator for Southside Minneapolis, District 62, and both President Champion and Floor Leader Long spoke eloquently about what the legislation is, what it does, and I want to speak a little bit as to the why. Right now, we've been experiencing the largest federal ICE operation in our nation's history, with billions of dollars, over $170 billion invested in terrorizing, dehumanizing our communities, and putting the full weight of the federal government upon us. 170 plus billion in a time in which we're told that there's no money to house our neighbors, in a time in which the federal government is actively gutting healthcare for especially our most vulnerable. And right now, what we've seen in response to that is that neighbors have been protecting one another, forming neighborhood response group, rapid response groups, forming group chats, peacefully observing and recording. And it seems like every person in Minneapolis right now is carrying a whistle on them, or in the Twin Cities area, blowing whistles whenever they see ICE agents in the neighborhoods. And so right now, we've seen, especially in District 62, two murders of United States citizens, of Renee Good and Alex Pretty, both in the south side of Minneapolis. They didn't do anything wrong. They were standing up for their neighbors. They were community protectors, and they lost and sacrificed their lives. And from that, I'm hoping, and what we're seeing is that there's a large pushback from not just in Minnesota, but nationally. And so we need to, for the folks that have had their constitutional rights violated, whether it could be physical, administrative, what have you, there needs to be recourse for that. They need to be able to have due process and a day in court for that. I've heard countless stories from neighbors about how they've had their constitutional rights violated. I've heard stories, for example, and this touches a little bit on it, but when ICE takes folks to the hospital as patients, sometimes in a coma, they change the patient's names and families are unable to find them, right? We've seen folks getting shot at point blank with pellet guns and tear gas. We've seen a whole host of stuff that if you just go on any single day on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, you'll see some gross, obvious constitutional violations that are occurring, and that needs to stop. And our hope with this legislation is that folks will be able to take action. And so I'll leave it at that. And I want to say thank you so much for the city for giving us the opportunity for to run this through.
Thank you so much, Senator. And I do want to acknowledge that both Renee Good and Alex Preddy lost their lives and were taken from us in your district. And our hearts are with every neighbor that's over there, with our entire city. I want to encourage anyone that's watching right now, like now's a really great time to support local businesses, especially the businesses on Eat Street. They really need your love and support. Lake Street, any of our major corridors in our city, businesses down across the city due to the fear, the intimidation by ICE agents, the blatant violence that has taken that has happened on our corridors from the north side to the south side. So if you're able to, if you're supporting local business or use your money at these mom and pop stores, if you can double your orders, tip extra this time around. Our community members really need it, and we know that they are a part of making sure that our city stays vibrant and a huge part of us getting through this moment. I'm going to give some updates on behalf of the city of Minneapolis and some other updates that I'm tracking out of the Minneapolis City Council. So first and foremost, the Governor Walz and Mayor Frey both have spoken with President Trump in the last few days, have expressed that our city benefits from our immigrant communities, and the ask continues to remain. We need Operation Metro Surge to end. We need ICE out immediately. Mayor Frey also met with Tom Homan, the border czar that is now taking over for Greg Bavino, who he has been demoted from his position and sent back to his former position in El Centro, California. He had a meeting with him, and he expressed to Tom Homan that we are not going to be removing or changing our separation ordinance here in the city of Minneapolis. And the ask remains. I want to be really clear to constituents and community members that are listening in. Even with the statement of Greg Bovino leaving and some federal agents being taken off, we haven't gotten a hard commitment in numbers, and ICE is still very much present in our communities. Community members are still sheltering in place. Community members are still doing constitutional observing and responding. Even as much as yesterday, I myself saw someone get detained. I've heard from community members on the ground that the South Side is still a place where there's a lot of activity. We saw a lot of activity in Central Avenue yesterday. And one of the things that occurred is there was an attempted incursion into the Ecuadorian consulate in Minneapolis by ICE agents yesterday morning. The Ecuadorian consul in Minneapolis reported that approximately at 11, an agent from U.S. Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement attempted to enter the consulate premises. The consulate officials immediately prevented the ICE officer from entering the consulate office, thus guaranteeing the protection of the Ecuadorian citizens who were present at the consulate at that time. And they activated emergency protocols issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Human Mobility. Therefore, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic immediately submitted a note of protest to the United States Embassy in Ecuador to ensure that all acts of this nature are not repeated at any of Ecuador's consular offices in the United States. And I think that's really important to share because it just continues to give an example. It's like in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, in our metro area, because of all the good work that our community members are doing peacefully, we are winning this fight. This resistance is tough on many community members. It's requiring us to lean in. And so just understand that the ICE presence is still here, and we shouldn't keep our guard down. But it is important that people take time to take a step back, rest. This is this is a really, really difficult time for a city, and we need to make sure that community members are taking care of themselves. Couple other things that I want to highlight from the city of Minneapolis is the city of Minneapolis is interested in better understanding the impact of recent ICE actions on small businesses in our city. A survey for businesses will be linked below in our video. That will only take a minute or two to complete. It is to hopefully provide valuable information to the city to help businesses. The surveys is in English, Spanish, Somali. If your business has sustained financial losses, the following steps might be valuable. Document these financial impacts. For example, keep track of days your business was closed or had reduced hours, sales records with comparisons to prior years as possible, inventory losses, perishables. Call your insurance company to check your coverage for business interruption. Not all policies will include business interruption coverage, but policies vary for eligible situations. Contact the Minnesota Department of Commerce if you have any questions about your policy. Reach out to your lenders, suppliers, and if you rent your space, the property owner for your location, you may be able to negotiate temporary changes to your terms of payment. And if you expect to be late sending sales tax, reach out to the Department of Revenue. Business owners seeking guidance or attorney referrals can contact the city small business team by email or by calling 612-673-2499. Thank you again for tuning into this Metro Officials ICE Out Report. Our next ICE Out Report will be on this upcoming Friday, January 30th at 12 p.m. We will continue to do this as long as it is needed. The situation is ever evolving, and so there will be timely updates from officials across government. Thank you, everyone that is showing up in this moment. We all couldn't be prouder of our state and city. Stay safe, stay vigilant, take care of one another.